Hey everybody on YouTube, it's me, Rachel, the Student Witch, and just right off the bat I want to say that I created this specific tarot spread in light of the race riot and subsequent tragic events that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm filming this on August 20th, so it's been around 8 days since those events, and it's also the day before the total solar eclipse that is happening on August 21st, that a big swath of the United States will be able to see. So I want to take advantage of this solar eclipse, once in a lifetime event for many of us here in the United States, but also take advantage of the timing of the eclipse and what this eclipse means or could mean, how we can interpret it or use it as a metaphor for some really deep social shadow work that needs to be done. So that being said, let me explain what I got going on here and explain what each of the positions of the cards mean, and then I will do a general reading with this spread that might provide some radical hope for those of us interested in working towards social justice. So, I have the Mariel Tarot. The Mariel Tarot is my favorite tarot deck, but it's also the deck that I go to for deep, important shit. I have some my go-to crystals here, some labradorite, some fluorite for clear thinking and discernment, and this beautiful piece of amethyst. And Travis, if you're watching, this will look really familiar, along with the selenite candles. Okay, the first position here is called reflect. Pause and allow yourself to feel all of these feelings of anger and frustration and being overwhelmed and sadness and just feeling lost. Reflect on those. Give yourself time, whatever amount of time you need, to sit with those feelings and reflect on where they're coming from and why they are coming up for you. Reflect on whatever memories the events have brought to the fore. Reflect on how current events are acting as mirrors for shadow. And this is where I want to kind of go into a little bit more depth about what the eclipse, the solar eclipse, means for me. The moon reflects the light of the sun. That's how we see the moon. The moon is a great mirror. It is the perfect symbol, metaphor, whatever you want to call it, for shadow. Both your individual shadow, but also the greater social shadow that this country is facing right now. Our shadow, our collective shadow, if you will, of the memory and legacy of racism and slavery and all sorts of shit that we have to confront. And confronting the shadow doesn't mean rejecting it, it doesn't mean suppressing it, it means coming to terms with it and then incorporating it into our idea of what this country is and what it stands for. Right? So this time of the eclipse, both on an individual and on a wide-scale social level, is the perfect time for us to do some major shadow work. So reflect. The second position here is called react. How can you take action to be both proactive and to work through your shadow and emotions? How can you practice self-care in times like these? How can you contribute to fighting for social justice? So depending on what card comes up for you individually, if you do use the spread, or what card comes up later when I do a general reading for all of us watching, this could be a call to take action, but it can also be a call to rest and practice self-care. I know I've I've participated in many marches. I participated in the Women's March. I've participated in several marches for workers' rights and immigrant rights since January, since 45 took office. And I know there were times when I just felt emotionally, physically, spiritually exhausted and overwhelmed. And times like those, you need to practice self-care, like your life depends on it. This could mean taking a break. This could mean deleting the Facebook app from your phone for a little while. It could mean taking a break from social media. It could mean making sure that you're eating well and getting enough sleep, because in order for you to be the most proactive and efficient in your work for social justice, it means you need to be in tip-top shape, mentally, spiritually, physically, right? So self-care could be very important. But this could also be a call to action, literal action. It could mean hooking up with your local chapter of showing up for racial justice. I follow Showing Up for Racial Justice on Facebook. It's a nationwide organization with local chapters. You can go to their website, which is linked in the description box below. It is specifically an organization for white people to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable to do the work, to learn about our privileges, and then take the necessary steps for dismantling white supremacy and the systems of the racist systems that are in place that uphold that privilege, right? So that's specifically for white people to show up and do the work for racial justice. And again, if you're interested in getting involved or learning more, the link is in the description box below. Okay, so react. And the last card here is called Radical Hope. What is radical hope? Radical hope for me is a hope that requires action. It is a verb more than it is a noun. It is a hope that recognizes that action needs to be taken. It is a hope that it is a queer utopia. It is the ability to see beyond the present moment, to look towards the future and hope for the future, and to see that other worlds and other situations are possible, but these other worlds require our work. This is what radical hope is. Okay, so this could be a message from Spirit for radical hope. Where can you see radical hope in difficult times? What aspects of your life could benefit from radical hope? How can you put radical hope into practice? Okay, so reflect, react, radical hope. And even though I created this spread in light of the recent events in Charlottesville and the turmoil that's in the country right now, this spread can be used not only for or in relation to the solar eclipse happening and this specific historical moment. This can be used at any moment when you feel despair creeping in, when it all seems like too much hate, too much violence, when you start to lose hope. This is where radical hope can kick in. And unfortunately, if you've read anything about history and know anything about the civil rights movement or the movement to abolish slavery, you know that probably what happened in Charleston is not going to be the end. There could be more white supremacist rallies. There could even be more fatalities, unfortunately. So moments like Charleston most likely will happen again. You can't get rid of white supremacy overnight. So please, I would encourage you to either use the spread or come up with your own spread. Go to the tarot, go to your witchy tools to work through hopelessness, despair, being overwhelmed, overwhelming anger, apathy. You know, use these tools to work for those and make sure that we are all agents of change, that we hold ourselves accountable and responsible, and that we work towards those brave new worlds. where finally white supremacy and other systems of oppression are finally gone and even unimaginable. Okay, next step, the reading. So I actually ended up using the cards that I had placed here, and I promise I did not peek at them. I actually shuffled them and randomly pulled them out of the deck before I even started recording the video. And look at what the first card is. We have Justice. And it's really interesting just looking at the spread as a whole. We have Justice right off the bat. And we also have two cards from the Discs or from the Pentacles suit. Two very interesting cards, and I'll get into those here in a second. So the first card here is Justice. And here we have from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Goddess of Justice with the Feather of Truth. So this is in the reflect position. So this might be a call for all of us with this eclipse, with the current events in mind, to sit down and reflect on what justice means to us. Maybe write in your journal about justice. Maybe think about how you can contribute to justice. Is justice more a verb, or is it a state of being? How can we achieve that state of being? What does this feather of truth mean to you? How is this feather of truth weighed in comparison with your heart? Okay? How is this moon covering the sun, this eclipse, this new moon, because tomorrow is actually the new moon as well. So we have the dark moon covering up the light of the sun. How is that related to justice? How does that call you towards justice? How can you show up for racial justice, keeping in mind the link that I have below, the organization that I mentioned before? Very apt card. For react, we have the Two of Discs. Now, I like to relate the cards in the minor arcana with cards in the major arcana. So here, the second card, the number 2, in the major arcana is the High Priestess. So let's just take a look at these real quick. The discs, the coins, the pentacles, earthly affairs. For me, it's also a suit of manifestation, not the process of manifestation, but the actual results, the physical results, the existence of that process of manifestation. The High Priestess, the quintessential, receptive, spiritually feminine archetype for me. She receives the wisdom of the moon. She calls us to reflect on shadow. Here we have the moon as well. She calls us to reflect on emotions, this cascading of her dress that looks like water with the moon. She is reflecting on knowledge here in her scroll. Pillars of knowledge. So she, I think, is very related to reflecting on justice. So how can we take this reflecting on justice, react, and make it into a physical reality? And the Two of Discs, the twos are all about balance as well for me. And we have the 2 coins over her eyes. So this just a kind of literal surface level interpretation, which is still very important. It could be a call to donate. Donate to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Donate to Planned Parenthood. Use whatever money you might have, money that you don't necessarily need, and take that money and donate it to these organizations that are fighting for reproductive justice, racial justice, economic justice, what have you. So this might literally be a call to balance your finances, balance your checkbook, See what extra money you might have, if it's 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks. And instead of using that to buy a couple of coffees or an extra lipstick or whatever, take that money and donate it. So that would be one way to interpret this card. Another way would be to take the coins off your eyes. So this might be a way, again, another call to donate, to lift the coins off your eyes, to use your financial means to contribute to justice, but also to open your eyes, right? And going with the idea of balance, this might just be for those of you who are already working and showing up for protests and doing everything you can. It might be a call to balance. It might be a call to remember your earthly needs and your bodily well-being, your physical well-being. It might be a call to balance those things out and make sure that you don't burn yourself out, right? And finally, radical hope. We have a very interesting card, another Pentacles. We have the 5 of discs. And here we have the disc over his heart. And the disc, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, shows a beautiful landscape with the moon, with flowing water, with rolling hills, lush vegetation. It's a utopia. This is the radical hope utopia I was talking about earlier. And the 5s, for me, are related to the 5th card in the major arcana, the Hierophant, which is really interesting because actually on my husband's altar this morning, we drew the Hierophant, but it was reversed. So I know the Hierophant can be a difficult card because of its associations with schooling and authority and social hierarchies and literally just the priest or the pope. But for me, the Hierophant represents social institutions, right? Church, state, economic institutions, political parties, social hierarchies, academic institutions. And the Hierophant, being that he is the leader leading his flock, is very much kind of a professor figure for me, to try to give it a more positive spin. I actually don't mind the Hierophant since I am within academia, and I've been fortunate enough to have lots of really good professors who not only act as teachers but also mentors and guides to help you navigate these social institutions. So the Hierophant is a lot about learning. And there goes a fire truck. The Hierophant is a lot about learning and mentorship for me. And so all of the 5s in the minor arcana kind of have that same vibe. So here, the 5 of discs, this radical hope, the discs or the pentacles being that result of manifestation, physical reality. This might be a reminder for us to remember that these utopias, and I know utopia literally means no place, but these utopias are possible, and systemic institutional change is possible. We just have to learn from our mentors, learn from civil rights leaders, learn from the current leaders of the various justice movements that are going on. And it might also be a call to join some of those movements and institutions to help bring about this change, to help make this radical hope a physical reality. So it's about learning. So we have a lot of reflection on justice, balance, and maybe even a call to financially contribute or to contribute in some way to personal balance, but also social balance and justice. And then that radical hope, knowing that the justice we're working for is possible. We just have to learn from our leaders, from our mentors. Okay? So I hope you find this spread helpful. Please feel free to create a video response to this, to use this spread, but I just ask that you give credit where credit is due and just give me a shout out if you do talk about this spread somewhere in social media. I hope this specific reading has been helpful, and I hope everybody has a good total solar eclipse for those of us in the continental United States who will be able to view and witness that eclipse. And until next time, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you later.